The National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases is raising concerns that could impact whether AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine gets emergency use authorization in the U.S. Yesterday, AstraZeneca reported its COVID-19 vaccine was 79% effective at preventing symptoms and 100% effective at preventing severe illness. But health officials say they are worried results from the company's U.S. trial included outdated information. The company says the data included cases from as recent as last Wednesday, but also says it is working with the Independent Data Safety Monitoring Board and promised an update within 48 hours. Joining us now is Dr. Eric Choi Pena. He is the Director of Global Health and Emergency Room Physician at Northwell Health. Doctor, welcome. Great to have you with us. So where do these concerns stem from exactly, and what impact could this have on AstraZeneca's application for emergency use authorization?
Yeah, so the concerns really are just how they reported the data. And when they were reporting effectiveness and efficacy, they used set endpoints that were behind the most recent data that they had. So it wasn't really reflective of the most up-to-date efficacy, which really puts it at around 69% to 74% effective instead of the 79 that they announced. The problem here is that these series of missteps really do harm the reputation of the vaccine. And a 69% effective vaccine is a really good vaccine for this. I mean, this is not something to dismiss. And I agree with colleagues that say that this has been a blunder, but this also is, I think, still a good vaccine that people need to consider. I just wish that the rollout of this vaccine had been more well thought out in terms of trying not to make these public relations errors that really undermine the confidence in this particular vaccine.
Right, because the worry is if they're not being completely transparent on every level, then you worry about the real efficacy of the vaccine. Correct? It's just sort of it's a question of trust, right, and transparency.
Right, and we do have safeguards to make sure that as we saw, that the company is presenting the full aspects of its data, which is why all of the data is independently reviewed. The problem, I think, is that there are people trying to just kind of put the best foot forward and show the best efficacy when really it's not necessary. Let's be honest about the efficacy of the vaccine. Let's be honest about kind of what its limitations are and incorporate it into the arsenal of vaccines that the world has to use against COVID. I mean, there are some clear advantages to this vaccine in terms of being able to store it and distribute it in much more efficacious ways than some of the other vaccines on the market.
And would this be a single or double dose vaccine?
This is a double dose vaccine, so it doesn't have that advantage of being single dose. It is a double dose vaccine, but it is much easier to store. It doesn't require deep freeze, so it can be distributed much wider in the world than some of the other vaccines like Pfizer and Moderna.
So, Doctor, more than a third of U.S. adults have now received at least one dose of a coronavirus vaccine, which is very good news. But we still don't know whether fully vaccinated people can spread the virus to others, correct? What's the latest on that research?
Yeah, I mean, the best data that we have is that you are much, much less likely to spread or get infected with COVID if you've been fully vaccinated, to the point where we've seen the CDC change the recommendation that fully vaccinated people can be, if they're indoors, can be unmasked and not observing social distancing. We do think that's a recommendation that's going to get extended and continued. But there is this small chance that you can be a carrier, that you could transmit the virus, although we do think that you are much, much less likely to do so if you're fully vaccinated. No vaccine is perfect, no matter how close they get to 100%. It's not expected to be a perfect system, but it's a good enough system that it will end this pandemic.
Right. And, interestingly, the University of Oxford is looking at whether mixing vaccines could be more effective against the coronavirus than getting 2 doses of the same vaccine. What are researchers looking at to specifically determine efficacy?
Yeah, I think, you're following the patients along. You want to see if you mix and match whether you have less transmission. It's really hard to tease out differences when you've got 94% efficacy rates. So you're going to need a large study and lots of follow-up. But the immune system reacts in different ways to different vaccines, and that's why we see the different efficacies. Mixing and matching, we really have no way of knowing what it's going to do or whether it's going to be an advantageous or a disadvantage to do so until we do the studies. And so I think it's too early to tell kind of whether that's going to be something that we can rely on. But certainly, I think it's good that we're looking at it.
Yeah, and at this point, what could this trial mean for global vaccine distribution? Because I would imagine it's a lot easier to just get shots out to people and not have to worry about people getting the same making sure the 2 shots are the same vaccine.
Yeah, anything we can do to simplify the vaccine regimen for the world, especially when we need to get to remote areas, when we're delivering vaccine in places where the cold chain is very difficult to maintain. These are all considerations where the easier we make this logistically on global healthcare, the better chance we have of vaccinating the entire world and making sure that we end this. Anything that puts restrictions on that, either needing a booster in a year or so, or the storage requirements, or needing to give the same vaccine, those are all limitations that make it harder to vaccinate people.
Well, where do we stand on that research, Doctor? Because we still don't know how long the protection from these vaccines lasts, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're still following those phase 1 trial candidates to make sure that, they're still protected, and we're being very careful. The CDC is being very careful when it determines kind of how long the vaccine said. They've said only 90 days at this point. We do expect a longer time period to be announced shortly, but they're being cautious because we really don't know. We need the longitudinal data. We need to follow those subjects to see kind of if there's a dip in efficacy of this vaccine, and if so, when it is.
Wait. So you're saying right now the vaccines are only claiming that they have 3 months worth of protection once you're fully vaccinated?
No, but the CDC's recommendation of whether you can skip quarantine if you're exposed is a 90-day. The CDC's only said that people who are vaccinated can only not quarantine if they have a close contact if they're within 90 days of their first dose and have no symptoms. That's a very cautious recommendation, and we expect that recommendation to be made longer. But for right now, that's the recommendation.
And following those first phase trial patients, have many been reinfected at this point?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't heard of any that have had any serious complications or reinfections. And so I think that's the data that we really want to see. Those trials that started in July, coming around this July, how are they doing? Have any of them gotten COVID? How effective is this vaccine? That's all information that we're really hoping. The ideal for us would be if this was something that lasted multiple years. That would make this much, much easier to roll out to the entire world.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed on that one. All right, Dr. Eric Coy-Pena, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
I can tell you how I feel about you now.
Looking for a bad chick? Ass so big I gotta grab it. Let's go. Independent, established. Who let she let? Let's go.
She bad. Something I gotta have. Sending me pictures of Snapchat. Turned up, got her Instagram on fire. No match. She leave. Low key trying to be my wifey. On my D. Naked pics to my D. She leave. So bad, look at her go. Snapchatting that pussy, no clothes on. No shame, she on one.
Johnny Gunn.
Shawty stay lit and she know that. Taking more pics than the Kodak. Got a nigga on her profile trolling, liking pics 10 in a row, and she don't give a damn about side piece shit. Certified wifey type chick, made me wanna just do it. Nike said she really get to it, it's unlikely. She ain't never been an inbox stylist, trying to get her rocks off. Somebody nigga got a hot though, sending vids with no clothes. Man, look at her go. She bad, something I gotta have. Sending me pics and Snapchats. Turned up on her Instagram on fire. No match. She leave. Low key trying to be my wifey on my D. Naked pics to my D. She leave. So bad, look at her go. Snapchatting that pussy, no clothes on. No shame, she on one. She
All the
leave.
bad chicks stand up. All the ladies chick. Two fingers in the air if you a bad chick. Three fingers in the air if you wifey. Four fingers in the air if you my hands up. Bad chicks, put your hands in the air. Hands up. Bad chicks, put your hands in the air. For the bar, bad chicks, put your hands in the air. In the air. Bad hands, let's go.
Shawty on fire. Object of my desire. Straight blazing, amazing. Stay lit like big lighters. She slays. Go ahead and do your thing, babe. DJ, press play and feed the flame. Cause she leads. Low key tryna be my wifey on my D. And naked pics to my D. She leads. So bad, look at her go. Snapchatting that pussy, no clothes on. No shame, she on one. She leads.
She lit. She lit.
She leads. Low key tryna be my wifey on my D. And naked pics to my D. She leads. So bad, look at her go. Snapchatting that pussy, no clothes on. No shame, she on one. She leads.
Said we gon' take it back down, we gon' get it that's how. All the young niggas round here pulled up. No, we never top out. Caught up in the trap now. Tell her hater I ain't worried about a thing, bitch. Hold up. We gon' take it back now. Yeah. It's AJ. Said we gon' take it back now. Yeah. Back into the old school.
Now we gon' take it back, no, we gon' take it back. Like thinking about the past, like trying to get my act right. Come alive in the night, better bring a flashlight. Haters sleeping on me, but this ain't nap time. In and out this motherfucker, yeah, sorta like a half pipe. Feeling real blessed, like I just been baptized. Smoking fake rappers, yeah, it's similar to a crack pipe. Haters tapping out, but it's only halftime. Hit you with the mad rhymes, eat a rapper like snack time. Don't you understand, my rap is like a fortress who dares to attack mine. Guarantee it'll backfire, man, I'm trying to blow up like I'm living in